Hello and welcome back. I thought I would do another video on centering because the first one was from a funky angle and you couldn't really even see what I was doing. So this time, hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. And these are a couple of tricks and tips especially for beginners that are having a hard time centering. So the first is that I wedged it up, and as I'm wedging it up, the clay is spiraling in this direction. When I put it on my wheel head, I want to make sure that I'm putting it in the same direction. So this was the top as I was centering. And the reason is because as the wheel is spinning, the clay is already used to going in that direction. So it's going to be a lot more manageable. The other thing is that I have this brick right here, and I put it down on the ground, and it's right parallel to my pedal. And the reason is because otherwise I'd have to lift my leg up and sit on my tippy toes right here. And that can get pretty hard if you're doing it for a long time. So that way I just put it on my brick and it's exactly where it needs to be. And the last is the positioning of your body. So you want to make sure that you're really close up to your wheel, and also that your nose, as you are centering, is right above your clay. And as soon as you have that, you are pretty much ready to go to start. So I'm going to get my wheel head wet here. Just a little bit. And I'm going to throw it down and just kind of pat it into place. And so this is the first trick right here. I'm not going to quite start centering it yet because I want to suction it onto my wheel head. I don't know how many of you have done this before where you're centering and then whoop, it just slides right off. So this actually prevents that from happening. And so what I do is I just take my hand, I put it in some water, and as it's spinning, I push down right on the bottom right here, and I push it down onto my wheel head so that it suctions it on. The other thing that I want you to think about is no matter how much water you use, whether you use a sponge, whether you just drip the water on, no matter how much you use, when you are throwing and when you are centering, you're going to start with the wheel going at its fastest speed, and you're going to use the most water that you use. So I throw usually pretty dry, so I don't use a lot of water, but in the beginning, that's when I use the most. So I'm going to get my hands wet. I'm going to push down to start with, just to make sure that it doesn't come flying off. And to give you a heads up, this is about 1 pound of clay. Now as it's going, the other thing you want to think about is that you can actually center just with your left hand if you're right-handed. If you're right-handed, it's going counterclockwise. If you are left-handed, it's going to be going clockwise. So I'm doing everything for a right-handed person. So as it's going, my elbow is right in my hip, and it's not going to move. And I can pretty much center it just with my left hand. My right hand is really not going to be doing all that much. Okay? What the right hand is doing is a different job, because if it's just my left hand, what's happening is there's this volcano effect right here, and you don't want that, because the outside is being centered and you're like, yay, it's centered, but the inside is actually not. So when you open it up, you realize that your clay is still going to be wobbly and still not centered. So what my right hand is doing is it's actually pushing down on the top, and you'll see here as this little cone comes up. And so that way it's the inside and the outside that's being centered. Push it back down. I also want to show you that you can see right here where the clay is hitting. So that's your goal right there. And then you do that about 3 times. And the reason that you do it 3 times, even if you feel like it's centered, is because sometimes there may be air bubbles in there, and that it's a great way to get those air bubbles out. And also it's communicating with the clay and it's saying, hey, I'm going to work with you. And so it's just a form of communication saying, okay, we're gonna do this. The other trick I wanna give you is that if you're gonna throw something that's not very tall, you don't want your clay to go very high up, but if you're gonna throw something that's taller, you do want it to go higher. And again, clay does have a memory. So if you, as you are centering, making it really tall, and then the clay is gonna say, I wanna be tall. But if you're gonna make something that's shorter, you just wanna let the clay know what you're gonna be doing. And as soon as it's centered, then you are ready to open it up. And there you go.